Mark Rogers TV on college football, and we finally get to my favorite series to produce. The top 10 at each position in college football. We did it for 2013 and 14. Check those out, see how we did. Let's dive into 2015, starting with the most important position, quarterback. So the disclaimer before we dive into the top 10 is that I'm not making an NFL draft projection. I'm also not projecting how these players will do at the next level. Also, take into consideration the support or lack thereof from the running game, the wide receivers, the offensive line. I'm not taking that into consideration. So we've got marginal quarterbacks with great supporting casts that put up big numbers, and we've got guys like a Christian Hackenberg that have to carry their team basically, although he finally has some help at wide receiver. So I'm discounting supporting cast. So I'm not necessarily projecting numbers. These are the 10 best quarterbacks in college football. And our honorable mention list includes Brad Kaya coming off that phenomenal freshman season. He got better as the season went along, threw 26 touchdown passes. In the same conference in the ACC, Jacoby Brissett, 23 touchdowns, 5 picks, led NC State to a bowl win. So we've got a number of guys on the fringe of this list, including 2 from the SEC, because we've got no representation from the SEC. Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, Heisman candidate, didn't play well against the big teams. Puffed up his numbers against the lesser opponents. Josh Dobbs, I'd have him on this list, but he's only got 5 career starts, and he's going to be all set for 2016, I'm sure, and will probably break his way into the top 10 at the end of 2015. But this is the top 10 heading into the opener. All right, number 10, we got Marquise Williams at North Carolina. He did not play in the spring, didn't get any reps because he had hip surgery, but he should be fine for his senior season. 21 touchdowns, 9 picks, 3,000 yards passing, 63% completion percentage. In the running game, he carried the heels. He led the team in rushing and rushing touchdowns with 13. He needs a defense. The North Carolina defense was atrocious last year. They either couldn't get off the field and give him the ball, or they got off the field too quickly because they gave up like a 75-yard drive in 2 plays and got him on the field with a 7-0 deficit. So Marquise Williams just needs some help from the defense, but he's a dual-threat, exceptional quarterback, and he's maturing going into that final season. All right, at number 9, we stay in the ACC, go to Clemson with Deshaun Watson. Check out Clemson's performance offensively with Cliff Stout, the senior, at the controls versus the freshman Watson at the controls. It wasn't even close. This kid is dynamic, and he looked like he belonged from week 1 and that first big test against Georgia. He threw for 68% completion percentage as a freshman, 14-2 touchdown to interception ratio, 5 rushing touchdowns, but he couldn't stay healthy. So that's a bit of a concern. Got hurt against Louisville, sprained an ankle later in the season, broke his hand as well, missed that Georgia Tech loss. Had the great performance as Clemson finally got over the hump after 5 consecutive losses against the Gamecocks, 14 of 19 against South Carolina, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Deshaun Watson, exceptional at number 9. All right, number 8, there he is, 12 gauge, Cardale Jones, Ohio State. 3 games played, but are there a more impressive 3 games in the history of college football? Defeated Wisconsin, Alabama, and Oregon. So the Big Ten championship game was impressive enough. Then I was a doubter going into the Alabama game, considering Nick Saban's got 3 or 4 weeks to prepare. The Alabama defense much faster, much quicker than the Wisconsin defense, but more so, I just thought he's not going to play from ahead on the scoreboard from the first series. So he's going to have to play behind the sticks on some 3rd and 12s. He's also probably going to get down. And they did 21-6, and look what he did. He has got a gun. He made the right decisions. Check out early in the Alabama game. He threw the ball away 4 or 5 times because the play wasn't there. He didn't try to stick it in there. He relied a lot on Devin Smith. So that's a slight concern because if you check out those throws, they aren't all on the money. Devin Smith made some big plays down the field, and those were the big plays in Cardale Jones' arsenal. Devin Smith off to the New York Jets. Cardale Jones comes back for Ohio State and may not even be the starter. And, of course, the Buckeyes have 3 of the top 10 quarterbacks in college football. All right, classic example of what I talked about at the top of the video. Christian Hackenberg, The stats are horrendous. In the regular season, he threw 8 touchdowns and 15 picks and completed 55% of his passes. The Penn State offensive line was atrocious. The running game gave him no support. He finally has 2 really good receivers in Deshaun Hamilton and Geno Lewis, and some really good help at tight end. The offensive line should be better. Christian Hackenberg, he did make some mistakes, and because of the lack of support, he started to get jittery in the pocket. This kid has an NFL arm. He's got all the tangible qualities and measurements to make all the throws. He stands tall in the pocket, delivers it downfield, has probably the second strongest arm, maybe the third to Trevon Boykin. Cardale Jones is, of course, at the top of arm strength, but Christian Hackenberg makes the NFL throws. If you just go out there in shorts and make the throws around the field, he's the best in the pocket on this list. Had a big bowl game against Boston College, so he made amends for the regular season with 4 touchdowns, no picks, 371 yards in the OT win against BC in the Pinstripe Bowl. And he had a great freshman season, leading Penn State to 7 or 8 wins. I don't remember if they were 8-4 or 7-5 off the top of my head. 20 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Hackenberg's going to be back, and he's got the 2 young wide receivers. All right, at number 6, we go to Michigan State, where they love to grind it out, of course, but they can do both now. Connor Cook, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks this past season. When he finally got to play in 2013, 22 TDs, 6 picks. So remember, Connor Cook was battling Andrew Maxwell for the Michigan State starting quarterback spot in 2013, and he lost the job. Then he finally got his shot in the bowl game, down a field, actually a tie game in which he led the game-winning field goal drive, and then wrestled away the starting job from Andrew Maxwell early in the 2014 season. Said after the Notre Dame loss, if I would have played, we would have won. He got the playing time after that, and he went from game manager to gunslinger of sorts, and that's gotten him into trouble. So against Stanford in the Rose Bowl 2 years ago, he throws the horrible pick backpedaling on the screenplay that blew up for a pick 6, but he came back from it. He comes back from adversity. He did it again against Baylor in the Cotton Bowl. Down 20 in the 4th quarter, he led the Spartans back. Then he throws the horrible pick on the out pattern to the left side that it looked like it ended the game and Spartans' chance of getting back in the game, but he came back and delivered the 42-41 win. Connor Cook's exceptional. We do want the completion percentage of 58% to go up. That needs to be around 65% for him to be truly elite. But Connor Cook can make the throws, and he's a very fine quarterback. All right, Trevon Boykin. Imagine a year ago, he was a marginal quarterback, throwing about the same number of interceptions as touchdowns, and he was such a marginal quarterback, he was basically a part-time wide receiver too. They didn't know what to do with him, just knew that he was an athlete. 1 year later, he arguably led the best offense in college football last season. 33 touchdowns, 10 picks, 800 yards rushing, had like 11, 12 rushing touchdowns. Don't remember off the top of my head. Trevon Boykin was exceptional. Does he get better, though? We shall see here early in the season. What do I have down here? Yeah, Sonny Cumbie's offense from the offensive coordinator spot was really key in letting Gary Patterson go with this kid at quarterback and let him really flourish. He did have wrist surgery in April. He should be fine for a senior season. Trevon Boykin at number 5. Okay, Braxton Miller, number 4. Hasn't played since the Clemson game, the Orange Bowl of 2013, but what a player he was. And he just fills up all the measurable stats you can give. The size, the frame, he looks the part, the speed, the quickness in space. If you look at some of Braxton Miller's better plays at Ohio State, they were because he had such quick feet for a big guy in space. He is prototypical size. He's got a great arm, but he's got the rotator cuff. And I kind of question his development even when he was healthy, because he showed progress from his freshman season when he was thrown into the fire with Luke Fickell at head coach between Tressel and Urban Meyer. But he really didn't develop into a polished passer. He still misses on a ton of throws. But again, arm strength, quickness, he's the best runner on this list. Braxton Miller, two-time Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, exceptional record at Ohio State, but will he get the starting job? We shall see. He looked to be staying in Columbus and playing for the Buckeyes this year and battling for that starting quarterback job, throwing the ball about 30, 35 yards at this point, so he's not yet ready to cut it loose. All right, at number 3, we may have the best NFL prospects here. Of course, that's not why I'm rating him number 3, but from that standpoint, the scouts say he makes all the progressions, he knows where to go with the football, he makes great decisions, he stands tall in the pocket. This kid will take a hit. We're talking about Jared Goff, number 3, out of Cal. 35 touchdowns, 7 interceptions last year, and this guy is a smart kid who has great quarterback instincts now going into his junior season. So we expect big things out of Cal and Jared Goff because he's got a better supporting cast and much better wide receivers than he had 2 years ago as a freshman. All right, the second best quarterback in college football going into 2015, Cody Kessler. He completed 70% of his passes, 39 touchdowns, 5 picks. He was the number 1 rated passer in college football, and his pass efficiency was the best in the history of USC. Carson Palmer, Pat Hayden, on and on and on. Vince Evans, Paul McDonald, the rest of those guys. Todd Marinovich, Cody Kessler, number 1 in USC history. And he is a very smart quarterback. And if you need to go line dancing, he loves to go line dancing too, and he takes his teammates. But he's loved by his teammates. He's a great leader. He decided to come back to USC, and they could be really, really good, despite missing Nelson Aguilar at wide receiver. All right, I finish up with the number 1 quarterback in college football for 2015. And I was just so impressed with J.T. Barrett last season from Ohio State. 34 touchdowns, 10 picks. Threw for about a 63% completion percentage, 11 rushing touchdowns, just under 1,000 yards rushing. And consider those gaudy stats in which he broke Drew Brees' all-time Big Ten total touchdown record for a single season with 45. He missed fourth quarter against Michigan, then the Wisconsin game, then Oregon, then Alabama. He missed 3.5 games practically, and still finished with a Big Ten offensive touchdown record. He would have totaled like 55, 60 touchdowns with those games played. J.T. Barrett, what's impressive about him is he runs the offense. So Braxton Miller was in this offense for 2012 and 13, and most of camp going into 14. And J.T. Barrett comes in, and after the clunker against Virginia Tech, which wasn't basically his fault, Urban Meyer has definitely credited Virginia Tech's game planning, going to a bear defense, locking up those wide receivers one-on-one. Those Buckeye wide receivers at that point had not matured, didn't win the one-on-one battles. J.T. Barrett didn't have a running game, and he was under siege in that game through 3 picks, just running for his life or making a desperation throw at the end to try to pull it off. But after the Virginia Tech game, his progression was exceptional. He anticipates throws. He anticipates receivers. He goes through his progressions. His decision-making is exceptional. He's not the best runner on this list, although he's got good speed. And like I say, he would have ran for 1,000 yards with a slate of games in 2014. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He doesn't have the biggest frame, the NFL body per se. But he's through and through, when you take it all into consideration, the best quarterback in college football heading into 2015. Still struggling with the sprained ankle or the broken ankle that he suffered against Michigan last November. But right now, J.T. Barrett, again, if at full strength, full health, best quarterback in college football. So there they are. Barrett at number 1, Kessler 2, Goff 3, Miller 4, Boykin 5, Connor Cook at 6. Another big year for the Big Ten in terms of quarterbacks. Is Christian Hackenberg still in there at number 7. Cardale Jones at number 8, so the Big Ten represented 5 times here. Deshaun Watson and Marquise Williams get some love for the ACC at numbers 9 and 10. That's my top 10 list here on Mark Rogers TV. Would love to hear your list. Where did I miss it? Who did I leave out? Who's too high or too low? Let's talk about it right here on Mark Rogers TV.